Publishing. It's like preparing for liftoff with the little counter they give you. What is up, guys? Wonderbro here with Vacate Fear. It is a fairly odd time for me to be streaming. What time is it? 5 a.m. Okay, that's really, really, really early. I slept last night, so I'm up early. Believe it or not, the night owl is up early. How's everybody doing today? How's everybody doing today? It's a little bit dark in here. You'll have to excuse me. Don't really want to blind myself this early in the morning. What's up, Brandon? How you doing? Welcome to the stream. Today we're going to be talking about, all right, your fear is always based on imagination. This seems obvious, all right? This seems very obvious when you say it, but we're going to talk about it a little bit today, and we're going to break it down a little bit deeper. What's up, Kay? What's up, Harris? Everybody having a good day today, I hope. Good morning, good night, good afternoon, wherever you're from. Welcome, welcome, beautiful people. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, whether or not I'm just going to stay up for the rest of the day and try to fix my sleep, or crash at the normal time, which is like early morning. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll give it a few minutes, let everybody get in here, get settled. What's up, Jen? 7 p.m. in Australia? That's crazy. All right, let's let Discord chat know that we are live. All right, there we go. Yeah, this is an odd time for me to be streaming. I normally don't stream around these hours, so I'll be curious to see if we have any new faces in here. Your fear is always based on imagination. That is the topic for today's stream. As I said, that seems obvious when you say it like that, when you put it into words. But we're gonna dive a bit deeper and kind of just confirm that. Maybe bring some peace to some people out there. 9:15 p.m. here in New Zealand. People all across the globe. How's it going, Gareth? I like your name. I like your name. Witcher all the way. All right, you guys. Let's get into it. Let's get into it here. Your fear is always based on imagination. What does that mean? Let's break that down a little bit. So, fear comes in the form of a thought, correct? Yes, no? Of course it does. Fear comes in the form of a thought, whether that thought be about what happened yesterday or what might happen in the future or what may happen tomorrow or what might happen with your symptoms, or it comes in the form of a thought. You have a thought, whatever that thought may be, and then you're kind of stuck in this cycle, right? You get anxiety symptoms, you experience fearful thoughts about the symptoms, therefore you have more anxiety symptoms. Now you're kind of stuck in a hamster wheel. Bit of a hamster wheel here. Um, but understand one thing. Fear is always based on imagination, and we could prove that. How can we prove that? People love proof. We can prove that in the fact that whatever it is you're fearing is not happening now. It's always based on something that might happen, probably will happen, probably won't happen, whatever the case may be. That's irrelevant. It's always based on something in the future, some sort of prediction. Your fear is always based on something that is not currently happening. Now, if something was happening to you that was undesirable, um, really you can apply that to anything. If something was happening to you that's undesirable, something unwanted, all right, it would no longer be a fear. It would be something that's happening, and it would go from being a fear to a danger, and you could either accept it if there's nothing you can do about it. If there's literally nothing you can do about it, you can either accept it or you can work with it and change it. So if something actually was happening to you now, it would not be a fear. It would be something that you're taking action against, right? So it would be something that you're taking action against, and because you're taking action against it, there would be no fear there because you're too busy dealing with whatever that danger may be. Therefore, there's no need for unnecessary anxiety or fear because you're too focused on solving that problem, right? So that tells us that there's a difference there. There's a difference between a problem and a danger. I don't even like to use the word danger. I prefer problem because a lot of us don't even face actual dangers nowadays. It's more or less problems. There's a difference between dealing with an active problem and experiencing fear. Fear is based on what's going to happen next. So you can be dealing with an active problem and there still be fear because you're worried about what's going to happen next. You see the how this works here. It's always based on what's going to happen next. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? Dealing with an active problem, you're too busy and concerned dealing with this problem that there's no room for fear. You're either going to take action or you're going to accept it and move on. So, unlike with fear, where it's always based on what's going to happen next. So, there's a lot of worry involved, there's a lot of unnecessary stress involved, there's a whole lot of doing nothing, right? A whole lot of doing nothing and just being worried sick. Because fear is always about something that's not happening, it's about something that could happen. So you can't do anything about fear when you give into it because it's not real. You're in an imaginary situation in your head, therefore, you can't solve it, you can't accept it, you can't do anything with it except for stop entertaining it. Stop entertaining that thought that's bringing the fear. And that's where people get wrapped up. They experience this fear, therefore they experience anxiety, turns into a nervous problem. Um, they wonder how they can escape it, and you feel a bit stuck because with fear being always based on imagination, you can't really deal with an imagination because it's not happening. You can't really solve an imagination because it's not happening. So people just continue to entertain this thought, and they continue to stay more or less sick because they can't figure out their imagination. Well, you can't figure out your imagination. You can't solve fear because fear is based on something that's not happening. So you need to remind yourself, all right, the next time you're sitting around worried, sick, anxious, stuck in this hamster wheel, that my fear that I'm experiencing right now is based on something that might happen. It's not based on something that will happen. It's not based on something that is happening. It's based on something that might happen. And it continues to be like that no matter how far down the rabbit hole you go. You can be experiencing a horrible problem in your life, a real problem, but your mind is still going to be on what's next. You get what I'm saying there? You can be experiencing a real horrible problem, but your mind is always going to be focused on what could possibly happen next. That's fear. Fear is always, no matter what's going on, no matter what the situation is, fear is always based on what might happen next. You can go through the worst of the worst, okay, in your life. And your fear, no matter which way you play it, will always be based on what might happen next. No matter what you are or are not going through. Fear is always based on what might happen next. It's being totally non-present. It's the absence of being present. Because in life, you're either present or you're in a fearful state. And if you're present, you can deal with life as it happens. There's no longer such things as problems. It's just what is. You can take action and solve it, or you can accept it completely. But with fear, it's always about what might happen next, and you're in an anxious, worrisome state. So presence is the absence of fear, right? And being in a fearful state is the absence of presence. So you see how that works there. If you're sitting there now, if you're laying there now, and you're in an anxious and worried state of mind, it's because you're experiencing fearful thoughts that you're entertaining. And those fearful thoughts are never based on what's happening now, they're always based on what might happen next. If you're present, you can deal with life as it happens. If problems occur, you can deal with them. You can either accept them or work with them, but they no longer cause suffering because you're able to do something about them, which is either accept them and move on or work with them. All right, so if you're present, you can deal with life as it happens. If you're fearful, you're in a state of worry about what might happen next. But what might happen next never comes. All right, because we either experience problems and we can take action, or that's it, or we stay in a state of worried fear about what might happen next. So understand that, and that's why I preach the importance of not following your thoughts. They're never based on reality. They're always based on what might happen next. And let's say you have a thought that you're worried that this thing, whatever this thing might be, might happen. And let's say it does happen, just for conversation's sake. Let's say it does happen. Well, then you can deal with it. You can deal with it. You can solve it. But then your mind is automatically going to jump to the next thing. So even if what you're worried about happening is going to happen, even though it probably won't, once that thing happens, you're just going to be worried about the next thing now. You're going to go from this thing to that thing, and it's always going to be about what happens next. So understand that and truly take that in, all right? And that should help you dedicate more to your present moment living. That should help you dedicate more to not entertaining fearful thoughts, because fear is always based on something that's not happening now. So hopefully that speaks to some people out there. I hope that was easily digestible for most of you. Um, Once I truly understand for myself that fear is always based on something that's not happening, I realized that I was living in a world of imagination driven by stress and worry. And once you realize that you're living in a world of imagination about always what's going to happen next and never what's happening, you start to wake up and realize that all the worry you're doing is completely and totally pointless. And you start to dedicate more to leaving the mind behind, leaving those thoughts behind. So I hope that helps someone out there understand the difference between reality and fear. And I hope that helps someone out there understand just how pointless and stressful fear is and how it really does us no good whatsoever because it's always based on some sort of imagination. So take that in and understand what I'm trying to say there when I say that fear is always based on what's going to happen next, never what is happening currently. All right? Meditate on that. Take that in and really think about that. And once you really, really digest that and understand that, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to dedicate to stepping out of that mind pattern, right? So that was the point of today's stream. Your fear is always based on imagination. It's always based on what's going to happen next, never what is currently happening. Because if it was currently happening, you could deal with it, you could solve it. So it's always based on what's going to happen next. All right, you guys. And I really want you to think about that, and I want you to take that in. Don't just look at that message at a surface value. Don't just look at it on its surface. Really take that in and digest that deep. All right. And truly understand what I'm trying to say there. And once you do, you'll be like, wow, it is so pointless for me to continue living in my mind. It is so pointless for me to continue entertaining these fears, these worries. So pointless because it's always about what's going to happen next. It's never about what's happening now because if it was happening now, I'd either deal with it and move on or whatever. And then, of course, even if it did happen, my mind's going to what's next, what's next, what's next. It's never about what's happening now. So if you're laying there in bed, just a really quick example, and you have a fear, oh God, this might happen, or a classic what if, whatever. Remind yourself simply, this fear is always based on what might happen next. So I'm going to choose to live now instead. All right, you guys, you're suffering over imagination. Um, and the biggest downfall, the biggest argument that I see to that is people will say, well, there's a good chance that it will happen. Well, understand this. If it does, you can deal with it then. And then understand that your mind is just going to jump to what's next anyway. Even if your fear does happen, as soon as you're in that moment, what you're fearing is happening, probably will never happen, but let's just say it is. Okay, here it is, it's happening. The mind has already jumped onto the next thing. It wants more worry. It wants more fear, so it's jumped onto the next thing. What you feared happened, but you're already on something else now, because that's how the mind works. It's never based on reality. Fear is always based on what might happen next. You will never experience fear, all right, over what's happening right now. What you can experience is danger, a sense of danger. But if there's a sense of danger, you're too busy trying to focus on dealing with the danger than you are entertaining your what if thoughts. So the anxiety symptoms become irrelevant at that point. You're totally ready to deal with the danger. You no longer care about the anxiety because there's a real threat to your life. There's a real danger there, right? So if you're dealing with a real danger, a real threat, you won't care about the anxiety symptoms. They'll be helpful. But if you're dealing with fear, that means you're in your mind. If you're dealing with fear, that means you're fighting ghosts, right? So understand this, there's danger and there's fear. If you need to act because there's a true problem, you will just act out of instinct and you will do what you need to do. And you won't be worried about anxiety symptoms because you're too busy dealing with a real threat, a real danger. And if you're dealing with fear, it's because you're living in your mind. You're living in your imagination, right? Understand that, take that in, and truly, truly, truly meditate on that. I know this is dragged on a bit longer than I planned for it to, but if you want to just listen to the last 3 minutes of this stream, honestly, that would be enough. As long as you understood that, that would be enough for you to start to distance yourself from fear and to realize how pointless fear is and to realize that you're suffering over imagination. All right? Morning, Wonder Bro. Thank you for your wise Wonder Boy. Okay, that's a new one. Thank you for your wise words. Can fear/imagination in a sensitized state create symptoms? For example, if I fear hearing voices, I convince myself I can hear voices. So the main part of the question was, can fear/imagination in a sensitized state create symptoms? It can create symptoms of anxiety, absolutely. The body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and your imagination. So if you're constantly in a state of entertaining fear, which as we just covered is totally imagination based, then you're going to experience symptoms because the body doesn't know any better. And that's what keeps people in the sensitized state. What if the fears of the current sensations you are experiencing, say laying in bed and panic has already come over you and you are shaking, nauseated, and afraid? So fear of the current sensations you are experiencing. So see where we're going with this. Fear of the current sensations you are experiencing. Why do you fear them? Chances are you fear them because you've attached some sort of imagination to them. You're afraid of the, let's say, the anxiety and panic because you think it might kill you or hurt you or harm you in some way. You're afraid of it because you think you might go insane because of it. You might lose your mind. You might experience some sort of physical or mental death because of it. So fear in itself, the anxiety symptoms, the panic symptoms, anxiety symptoms in itself is not the problem. It's the imagination that you're attaching to it. And understand when you experience fear, you're living in imagination. All right? You are living in your imagination. So it's not the feelings that are the problem. It's not life that's the problem. If you are in a state of fear, it's because you're worried about what might happen next. But what might happen next never comes. You may have to deal with dangers in your life, and if you deal with a danger, you're not going to be worried about anxiety, believe me. But you'll never deal with fears because fears are ghosts. They're imagination and they live in your mind. The fact that you're afraid of your symptoms, it's because you're telling yourself something about the symptoms that is fearful. You're still living in imagination if you're afraid of the symptoms. If you're afraid of the symptoms, you have a lot of second fear thoughts that you're entertaining, which is always about what might happen next. What might happen because. It's never about what's happening now. You can get someone, this is a good example, you can get someone who's in a full-blown state of panic, and if you had access to their mind when they're in that full-blown state of panic, you would understand that the suffering is coming from the mind. It's not about what's happening now. It's not because they're experiencing panic symptoms. It's not because they're experiencing anxiety. If you had access to their mind, you could see that their suffering is coming from the fact that they're living in what might happen next. What might happen because. What if, what if? If you had access to anyone's mind that were in a state of panic, you would see that that's the direction the mind is going in. Because fear is always based on what might happen because, what might happen next. See? See how that works there? Thank you so much for this. My pleasure. It's always good to go on a little bit of an early morning rant, right? I enjoy it. And if it helps somebody out there, even better. Insane Furball, what's up, dude? Hey, dude. I like the way you spelt that. What's up, man? Hope you're doing good. Wonder Bro. Phone likes to change words. Sorry, man. Oh, you're good. You're good. I wasn't familiar with your username, so I just assumed maybe you were someone who misread my name and thought it was Wonder Boy. Imagine. I wouldn't mind. But yeah, I think that's the best example you can give, really. If you took someone who was in a full state of anxiety and panic and had access to their mind and their thoughts, you would see that they're living in a state of fear about what might happen next or what might happen because. Even if they're in a full-blown state of panic currently, you'll see that their mind is in the direction of what might happen next and what might happen because. So they're always in a state of imagination. Always. And hopefully this gives you that aha moment where you're like, "Oh shit, I've been bamboozled by the mind for so long, always about what might happen next, what might happen next, never about what is happening." So, and that's a perfect example. People might say, "Well, I am experiencing panic and anxiety right now." Well, I'm not denying that. You might be. Sorry, my dog is scratching. Can you hear that? She's got a really loud chain collar thing. You might be in a state of panic. You might be in a state of anxiety currently. That's all fine and well. I understand that. But if I had access to your mind, I guarantee you're thinking about what might happen next or what might happen because of this. What? Guarantee that's what's going on in your mind. Whether or not you're in a full blown state of panic or not, that's where your true source of suffering is coming from, is what might happen next or what might happen because, which, as we know, is imagination based. As we know, is imagination based. So what do you have to do? You have to step out of that imagination base and leave that all behind. How do you do that? By reminding yourself that if you're in a state of what might happen next or what might happen because, that this is always a ghost that never arrives. There in life you can deal with real dangers, right? But if you're living in a state of mind of what might happen next or what might happen because, that's what's making you suffer, not reality, not what's actually happening. It's always because what might happen next or what might happen because. You were helping me big time. The UK needs more like you. Thank you. Hey, I appreciate that, man. Like it's all thoughts, and those thoughts don't matter, right? Those thoughts don't matter because they're always based on some sort of imagination, based in the future. Based in the future. If you're worried about hurting others since it's fear, it's the mind, right? Yeah, I mean, if you're worried about anything, it's based on the mind. If you were completely present to the moment and you just left that fear behind, and the point of this stream was to kind of encourage you to do that and give you more reason to do that, you wouldn't suffer because suffer's always about. I've already said it a million times, I know, but it's always about what might happen next or what might happen because you could be experiencing a full-blown panic attack right now. You could be experiencing some awful thing. You could be experiencing some sort of loss, great loss. You could be experiencing some sort of heightened sense of anxiety. You could be experiencing all these things right now in reality. But if you focus in on your mind, you'll see that it is still focused on what might happen next. Even if you are going through some great terror or problem, if you focus in on your mind, you will see that it is focused on what might happen next. Never focused on what is happening. And that's where the true suffering comes from. I haven't had a panic attack since I started practicing the two main keys, just experience anxiety, but it never escalates to panic anymore. That is awesome. I was definitely relaxing my body and keeping it loose and not resisting, but the adrenaline kept bursting. I couldn't stop shaking and couldn't slow my breathing. That's great that you're trying to relax your body, but anxiety acceptance also comes down to a lot of mental. A lot of mental. If you're continuing to entertain fearful thoughts, which is always based on imagination, you're going to continue to experience anxiety. because the body doesn't know the difference, right, between a real danger and a thought. So that's great that you're trying to relax the body. It's great that you're trying to practice physical acceptance, but understand that the mental part of things is huge. Huge. So you said my thoughts were, please stop, this is never going to end, I hate this, etc. That's exactly where your suffering is coming from. That's exactly why you are continuing to sensitize the nerves. That's exactly why the adrenaline continued to burst. Because every time you entertain the thought of, please stop, or this is never going to end, or I hate this, that's all a perspective. And that's a negative perspective. And the body sees that as a real danger, so you get more protection. So you really have to step out of that mind game. You really have to stop playing the please stop game. You really have to stop playing the this is never going to end game. And you have to start saying, well, so what if it doesn't? Because what's so bad about this? For so long I've lied to myself about this being this big horrible thing, but if I would just quit talking to myself and see my symptoms for what they truly were, I would realize that there's no need for anything to stop because there's no sort of real danger, and it's all based on imagination. My hate for my symptoms, my desire to escape them because this might happen or that might happen, is all based on imagination that I've chose to believe in, and now my body is paying the price for that. My body thinks I'm in real danger because of that. And that's the habit we've got to get out of. That's the habit we've got to get out of. All right, I've ranted for 26 minutes straight, so I think I deserve a smoke break. I'm going to switch to the BRB screen for like 2 seconds. All right, had to go grab me a cigarette. What's up, chap? Yeah, Jen, it's awesome. Awesome that you're trying to practice physically relaxing your body. That's one thing, right? But the mental side of things is huge. My nose is itchy. The mental side of thing is huge. Mental side of things. If you're continuing to entertain these thoughts, these fearful thoughts, this is what's going to cause unnecessary suffering. This is what's going to cause the body to continue popping off when it doesn't need to. You're entertaining these fearful thoughts that are always based on imagination, never based on reality. And this is what causes you to suffer ultimately. So, what's up, chat? How's everybody doing in chat? Hopefully, that 30-minute rant helps somebody out there, open somebody's eyes. And how are you guys doing today? Played Xbox again a little bit. That's awesome. You're getting back into your old fun hobbies. Next time, what to do? Should I try focus on breathing? I don't know what to do when it's so uncomfortable. Understand that the phrasing "it's so uncomfortable" is a perspective. Understand that you've villainized these symptoms to be something they're not because you believed in ghosts. And just start to really look at them with compassion and start to really look at them as an observer and see that, you know what? If I don't live life through the filter of my mind, these symptoms are not really as bad as I've chalked them up to be. It's my perspectives that make them horrible. It's all the second fear that make them horrible. Um, there's no monster. I'm doing this to myself. I'm continuing to keep myself stuck in this cycle with my perspectives. See the feelings for what they really are. Stop seeing life through the filter of the mind. So allow the symptoms to be there and say to yourself, you know what, for the first time, I'm actually going to just view them for what they are, without any negative labels or judgments, without any ghosts, without any fear from the mind. I'm just going to view them for what they are. I'm not going to entertain any sort of fearful thinking about them. And just see what happens from there and practice that. And I guarantee if you get the hang of that, which you will, all right, with enough practice, you will find relief. It really puts my mind at ease when I tell it, just bring it on. This cannot hurt me. Let it come. Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to tell yourself, it doesn't really, that's not really relevant. I mean, if you want to tell yourself this or that or this or that, as long as it's not negatively based, all right, then that's great. That's a great start. Don't entertain the ghost of the mind when it comes to your symptoms because it's always based about what might happen or what's going to happen next. It's never based on reality. Had such a bad week, not due to anxiety, just a situation. So glad I have tools to get me through this tricky periods now. Would have been different 2 years ago, right? Right? That's a good point. That's something I brought up not long ago in a stream. That the two main keys, everything that I preach here on the channel, it's good for life in general, not just anxiety, not just recovery, not just healing. Making a video chat group on Discord. Um, I mean, you could. That would be something you do in your like. You'd have to create it yourself. Like that's not something you can actually set up in the channel itself. That's something you'd have to do like through direct messages, like set up a group chat sort of deal. Definitely, yeah, definitely. So if you're laying there and you're in a state of fear, simply remind yourself that you're afraid of ghosts because it's always about what's going to happen next or what might happen. And you'll see that as you go through life, the mind is always going in that direction of what might happen or what might happen next or what might happen because. It's never thinking about reality, the moment. If you were just in the moment, then you could just deal with problems as they come, simple as that. Uh, step by step. If you had if you didn't have this strong identification with the mind, you wouldn't be living about what's going to happen next. You wouldn't be living for what might happen because you would just deal with things as they happened, and you wouldn't be in a state of fear. And that's why it's so important to just distance yourself from that inner voice. Realize that's not who you are. It's white noise in the head, and that's no longer something I'm going to become. That's no longer something I'm going to feed. What games are you going to be playing on Twitch? Speaking of Twitch, we've been doing a few streams over there, just trying to get used to it. I'm going to drop that Twitch link. We have started doing some Twitch streams here recently. Nothing too exciting, but let's drop that Twitch link. Go drop me some follows. Drop me some follow, guys. If you follow, it'll let me know right here on stream, this stream, and I'll be able to thank you personally right there. Twitch TV link, Wonderbro Gaming. As far as what games we'll be playing, I've been doing a little bit of Grounded over there, which is like a Honey I Shrunk the Kids survival type game. Really, really cool. Even if you're not a huge gamer, and you want to follow me on there, we can still chat. We can still hang out when I'm streaming over there. So, drop some follows. I'm in Australia when you have quite the strict lockdown. I'm running out of ideas and need some presence. Practice mindfulness. Practice being present. These terms all point to the same thing, which is just stop talking to yourself, right? Practice being present. Boredom comes from a state of mind. The mind that wants something to do, the little me, the little I. The mind, the mind, the mind, which is not who you are. So if you're bored, practice being present. If you want something to do, practice being present. You can never have enough of that. I already follow you on Twitch. Awesome. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it, man. RPG. I love RPGs. I don't really have a set schedule or stream schedule or like I'm going to play this and I'm going to play that. I just kind of get on and play whatever. My My liking of video games is very broad. I can pretty much get into whatever. Been gaming my whole life, so there's nothing I won't play at least once. I would like to play The Last of Us 2. Would you play Fall Guys? It's so entertaining. Yes, I want to try that. I want to try Fall Guys. It looks really fun. Put on weights trying to get it off again. Me and the wife are currently on a weekend away in a forest. Awesome. Big Worm, what's up, man? How are things going? Hope well. What's up, Big Worm? How you doing? I'm doing good, dude. This was a very good stream. I highly recommend you watch it. It'll definitely be getting uploaded. So fear is just our minds trying to protect us. Yes, from ghosts, things that never happen. And let's say something does happen, it's still going to go to the next thing, right? So it's pointless. It's always about what might happen. It's always about something that's not happening. Because if it was happening, you would deal with it. Because that's all you could do. So keep that in mind. Hello guys, do you remember me? Thank you. Took your advice and recovered 90%, but I have only one problem. Is what if this happened? Thank very much guys. I won't forget this, and your channel was perfect. 90% recovered, just needed a little bit of a motivator on the what ifs, the what if thinking, so I'm glad you could catch this stream. That's perfect. That is perfect. Happy to hear about your success, man. Keep it up. Yes, sir. I will rewatch it. Yeah, it's a good stream, dude. Really good stream. I feel like it's highly beneficial. I'm going to take a little vote. Let's do a little vote in chat. I've been contemplating how I want to do my thumbnails here recently for the channel. What do you guys think is better? Just big, bold text? Like big, bold, colorful text like purple and yellow? Just words, just lettering on a black background? Or do you like thumbnails that are like different? You know what I mean? Like different imagery and stuff, like with words over top of it. Or is it better if you just go simple with the big bold text and that's it? Or do you guys like to see images and stuff? Because I was doing some work on the channel and the Twitch last night. I was like, I wonder which thumbnail style is best. Simple and big and bold? Or different images and stuff with texts like kind of overlaid? What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Simple big bold text. Okay, we got one vote for big bold text. If you go on my channel right now and look at my recent like 6 uploads, I did that last night. I changed like 6 of the thumbnails on my most recent videos to the big bold beautiful text. Tell me what you think about that. It's very simple. Just change the text depending on the topic. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. But should it just be on like a plain background? Like just a black brick wall background with some text on it? And just change the text each time? Is that what you guys think? Because that's the way I've started to do it. If you go on my channel, you'll see that I worked on that a little bit last night. Tell me what you think about that. Hi, my beloved bro. Lockdown has made the mental health go downhill, as I'm sure it has. All right, well then it's a perfect chance to practice not identifying with that mind talk, those ghosts in the head, all that mental filter of the mind, right? That's what we got to practice. Suffering comes from there, not from the situation. Suffering's born in the mind, not so much from the situation. For Twitch, I'd say imagery, but for anxiety content, I'd say just words. Okay. So we've had everybody agree on just big, bold text. I think that's the winner so far. Any color scheme that makes the text pop? Yeah, so I've been doing it purple and yellow to match my overall channel theme. Well, it's kind of pinkish, but I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this. Probably not very well. Yeah, you can't really see that. Well, you can kind of see that. You can't read it, but pink and yellow text on a black brick background, so it's very simple. So far, everyone seems to think that's the way to go, so I'll continue doing that. I thought so too, but I wasn't sure because I used to do like thumbnails with all sorts of different pictures and images and on Photoshop I've got like two templates, one for live stream thumbnails, one for regular video thumbnails. The only difference is that the live stream thumbnails literally have the word live in red, so you know what is a live stream and what's a video. But they're the exact same, a brick background, a black brick background with purple and what's like I said, it's kind of pinkish, uh, pinkish purplish yellow lettering, which kind of pops out. So I just didn't want it to be boring. I was kind of curious if it was too boring to do that. Nauseous, yes. Stomach problems are very, very common with anxiety. Very, very, very common. I highly recommend that you watch this stream. I've been telling everyone that comes in here late. I highly recommend you watch this stream. I mean, you can go ahead and start now. Jen J, $10 dono. Thanks, Chris. You are so kind helping others. I appreciate that, Jen. Thank you so much. You didn't have to do that, but it helps me out a ton. So thank you so much for that, Jen. Can we show Jen some chat, some love in the chat, please? I can barely speak. So thank you, Jen. Appreciate it. Oh, I need to update this. Thank you so much, Jen. What is the best way to deal with anxiety? Heart. I'm going to assume you mean what is the best way to deal with like rapid heartbeat and stuff like that, anxiety related heart symptoms. The best way is to stop adding second fear. And that applies to every symptom. Doesn't matter what the symptom is. Second fear is going to be your worst enemy. And second fear is nothing more than the fear in your mind that you're entertaining about the symptoms. So if you have a very negative outlook on your symptoms, you're going to experience more anxiety. The body doesn't know any better. So work with that and practice eliminating that by distancing yourself from the mind, distancing yourself from that filter of the mind, allowing symptoms to just be without your judgment, without your negativity, and you will see that the true source of suffering was never the situation, it was never the symptoms, it came from your mind. Yes. Emoji love for Jen, our donator. Thank you so much, Jen. Alright, guys, I'll be right back. 2 seconds. It's a little chilly in here, man. I had to grab a blanket. It's a little I mean, I'm wearing a tank top, so probably my fault, but it's a little chilly. Another random thought that I had to kind of further prove my point. A lot of people try to find a loophole in the whole theory here. They try to say, well, but I'm anxious now. I'm experiencing panic now. I'm having symptoms now. Well, you still need to stop and ask yourself, nonetheless, am I creating this through my mind, like the suffering through my mind? And a good way that you can do that is by asking yourself, what's so bad about this now? Cut out all future, cut out all what might happen, okay? Cut out all what ifs, and ask yourself very seriously, what's so bad about right now? And you can't go and say, "Oh, well, I'm having heart symptoms, so I might have a heart attack, or I might go crazy because of this," because you're still right there. You're still adding I might. You're still adding what might happen next. You're still adding what might happen because of. When I say to stop and ask yourself what's so bad right now, that means to stop talking to yourself. All right? I'm getting a FaceTime call. Hold on. Hold on. I need to answer this one. Okay, well, that was strange. I tried to answer it. I didn't answer it in time. So I called him back. Immediately denied. So I was like, okay, that had to have been an accident because you definitely just called me. So I tried again. Denied. Weird. I'm sure they'll call me back. Till I realize it's just anxiety. What's wrong with adrenaline? Exactly. Exactly. But I can't seem to wave them off. Stop trying to fight with them. So that's just resistance. That's just fuel to the fire, right? Instead of trying to fight them off, just realize that they're always based on ghosts. They're always based on lies. They're always based on what might happen. Just realize the pointlessness. Just realize the absurdity of it and let it go that way instead of trying to fight it off. You'll find it's much easier to do it that way. When you look, you realize there's actually nothing bad about it. Exactly. I was just associating it with bad things. Yes. And letting my mind dictate what it could mean. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. You're catching on. You're catching on. Excellent, excellent comment. Seeing life through the filter of a mind is a good way to suffer. When you stop in the moment and actually ask yourself, am I living through the mind? Am I trying to fight ghosts? Or is there really a problem here? You start to see that the mind was creating a lot of that nonsense. That's what we discover when we stop talking to ourselves so much, right? And we start asking ourselves the question, am I in a fearful state or am I in a dangerous state? Because if you're in true danger, you don't have time to overthink it, you just act. And if you're in a fearful state, it's because you're worried about what's going to happen next. So there's two worlds there. And right now you're living in the fearful state, which is always about what's going to happen next. If there was a real danger, you would deal with it. You would deal with it out of instinct, you would act, you would handle it. Okay, but if you're living in a fearful state, it's because you're imagining ghosts. Stop trying to fight with the ghosts and just realize that they're ghosts. It's not real. This is a huge, huge, huge thing that we have to realize. That you are creating ghosts and then scaring yourself with them. It's not based on reality, right? It's based on what might happen. It's based on what could happen. It's based on what happens next. It's always based on something out in front of you, never based on something that's now. It's important we digest that on a deep level and not just see that, not just take that for surface value. It's important that we really think about that point. We really, really need to take that in. In the midst of panic, is it better to move around or still lie there? Panic comes in bed when trying to sleep. When trying to sleep, so if you can't get back to sleep, it's fine to start your day. It doesn't matter what time it is. If you can't sleep, you can't sleep. Don't try to force it. If panic is there, the most beneficial thing you can do for yourself is to practice not seeing it through the filter of the mind, but seeing it for what it really is. So that's to drop all of the ghosts that you're entertaining and fighting with upstairs. Realize that you're being bluffed by fear because there's nothing actually bad happening right now. The symptoms themselves are not even something that's bad that's happening right now. What is the best sign to know if this is anxiety? I always tell people, if you haven't been cleared by a doctor and you're worried that you have some sort of health condition, go get cleared by a doctor. I'm going to assume that you've already done that. And if you have already done that, it's anxiety. It's anxiety. Heart related symptoms are huge with anxiety. Very, very, very common. But, I'm not a doctor, so I always just come into this thing assuming that people have already been cleared by their doctors. If that's something they want to do, they already understand that. If you've experienced this thing for a while and you've dealt with anxiety for a while, pretty confidently say it's anxiety, but never hurts. Yeah, exactly, Christina. But let's face it. Let's talk about this. Let's face it. Does it really even if you're dealing with some sort of health problem, very unlikely, but let's just, for the sake of conversation, say that you're dealing with some sort of health problem. The stress and worry and the fear that you create in your mind and then entertain is not doing you any good. It's not benefiting you, health problem or not. So I just want to throw that out there. Don't find any excuse as to why you can't practice what we preach here on the channel. Don't find any excuse as to why uh, you can't, sharpen these skills. A lot of people do try to find excuses as to why they can't practice being present, as to why they can't practice, dealing with their fear and understanding their fear and how this whole thing works. A lot of people will find excuses as to why they can't do this. You're keeping yourself stuck in a hamster wheel, though. That's very unfair. It's very unfair to do to yourself to try to find excuses as to why you should stay stuck in your current way of living. Don't do that to yourself. Don't try to find excuses. But I told him the symptoms. He said, you're fine. It's anxiety. Well, if that's what your doctor told you, then that's what we're going with because your doctor knows what he's talking about. So now that we know that it's anxiety, you got to stop living in the mind. You got to stop creating fear by fighting with your fear, by entertaining your fear. Realize that fear is so pointless. It's always based on something not happening now. There's no need to entertain it. Start becoming more conscious of what's actually happening and realizing it's not a big deal. Realizing that you're creating these ghosts. That's that's the key for you now, moving forward. A good way to do that is a simple reminder to yourself in the moment you start to feel fearful that fear is always based on something that's not happening now. If you want to make that your mantra, that shuts it down. That shuts it down because then you're like, "Oh shit, that's right. I'm fearful because over something that's not happening now." Right? You either have dangers to deal with in life, problems to deal with in life, but if you have fear, it's always based on what might happen next. It's always based on something that's not happening now. And just reminding yourself of that when you're feeling anxious is a good way to ground yourself and kind of slap yourself in the face a little bit, right? What's my opinion on the root cause talk? Do you really need to complicate recovery trying to figure out a root cause to anxiety? In my personal opinion, no. I never figured out any sort of root cause to my anxiety. In fact, most of the time, if you go looking for a root cause, you're just going to overcomplicate things. In my opinion, um, the root cause of your suffering is the mind games that you continue to play with yourself instead of realizing fear for what it is. That's the root cause of your suffering. No sort of childhood trauma. The fact that you were at the zoo when you were 4 and the lion mascot scared the shit out of you. Okay, that's irrelevant. That's neither here nor there. Any sort of this going back in the past and Bozo the clown scared me at my 12th birthday party and now I've got crippling anxiety. It's all pointless because the reason you continue to suffer to this day is not because of what you've been through. What you've been through is what you've been through. The reason you continue to suffer in this moment is because of the mind games that you're playing with yourself in your head. That's the reason you continue to suffer. Not because of Bozo the clown, not because the lion mascot at the zoo scared you, not because whatever. And that's not to say that people don't go through traumatic experiences in their past. I'm not I'm not throwing you under the bus. There can be some serious things that people go through in their life. There can be some truly traumatic experiences. That's true. I'm just having a little fun when I make these funny examples. Yes, you can experience true trauma in your life, but that's not going to be the root cause of your anxiety. The root cause of your anxiety is always going to be the mind games that you continue to play with yourself today. The fact that you don't understand fear for what it is. Worried about things like muscle pain, headaches, etc. Automatically think it's the worst. Automatically think it's the worst. So there's the key word right there. Think. Think, think, think. Fear is always based on something that might happen. What if happens? Um, what happens next. Fear is always based on something that's not happening now. And that's what you really have to realize to step out of that. You have to remind yourself every time you want to entertain fear that it's based on something that's not happening now. If it was happening now, we would consider it a danger and we could deal with it appropriately, however, we could. But if it's fear based, it's always based on something that's not happening now. And that's a simple mantra that you need to live by. A lot of other channels talking about a root cause, but in my mind, it just seems way more complicated. It is. And again, that's just my opinion. Who am I? You don't have to use my advice here. You don't have to take anything I say seriously. It's totally up to you. Um, but in my opinion, trying to find a root cause from your past is just irrelevant. The root cause is the mind games that you continue to play with yourself that keeps your body in a state of anxiety because the body doesn't know any better. It takes your fear that you're entertaining as a real threat. And that's very simple. That's a very, very simple fact that tells us why we feel the way we feel when we play these mind games. The root cause thing made things worse and only added to my stress. Yeah, exactly. I realized even if I find it, I can't change it. Exactly. I need to work on the anxiety, not changing an event I can never change. True. Good point. Good point. All right, 2 seconds, guys. Hello, beautiful people. How long does it take to recover? I wouldn't even ask yourself that question. That's a very stressful thing to ponder because it's impossible to tell. Everybody's different. Instead of asking yourself how long is it going to take me to recover, you just need to focus on practicing what I preach here on the channel, practicing what I've told you here in this stream, and then just let things kind of happen naturally at that point. Because it's really impossible to predict. Everybody's different. You know, somebody could be severely sensitized while another person is, you know, just kind of sensitized, and there's different severities of sensitization. So it's really not possible to ask yourself that question and get a accurate answer. So if I was to tell you, like, for example, my nose is itching. If I was to tell you, for example, oh, it'll take you 2 months. Okay. Well, there's multiple ways you could take that. You could be like, oh, God, 2 months, it's such a long time. And then that fear is going to cause you to stress, right? Keep you from healing. Or maybe you could take it like 2 months. Okay, yeah, that's not bad. And then 2 months rolls around, you still need more practice. So, time frames, get rid of them. You are the man, bro. It's because of your advice, the one I felt better. I appreciate that, dude. Happy to help. I love doing these streams, man, because I get this personal interaction. I get to know you guys personally, and I love that. I love that. I love being able to answer questions. And that's why we don't do a whole lot of videos anymore. I still do the videos from time to time, though, to kind of please those people who enjoy that sort of thing. But when it comes down to it, I love the streams. I love the streams more than I do the videos. Videos are fun. I'll always do a video every now and then, but I love the streams for this reason. Or is daily exposure work needed? You can practice the two main keys anywhere, under any circumstance. Yeah, you can practice the two main keys anywhere, under any circumstance. The mental side of things is what you really got to get under control. I mean, there's acceptance of the physical symptoms, which is great, but you can't have one without the other. You really got to practice the mental side of things too. You've really got to practice understanding fear for what it is and not entertaining that fear. You've really got to go there with that. Um, You see a lot of people say, well, okay, I'm forcing myself to do things, but at the same time, they're spending all their free time entertaining negative thoughts and causing a lot of stress for themselves and then wondering why they're not healing. It's because you have to do both, right? You have to do both. We've stressed the importance of that in the past. How to forget the past, I struggle with it. Don't forget it, stop identifying with it. So, the more you try to forget something, the harder it's going to be to do that. But if you just let these thoughts of the past come without identifying, without going down the rabbit hole, it's fine. Again, you can be in a full state of panic, but if you've got the mind right, you'll be fine. You can be in a full state of panic experiencing any symptoms. You could be on an acid trip, but if you've got the mind right, you'll be fine. Fear is always about what's going to happen next. It's never about what's happening now. What's happening now is fine. You can deal with what's happening now. You can experience what's happening now. Fear is always about what might happen, what never does. Fear is always about what might happen next. So if you're totally just now, it's fine. Whatever you're experiencing, whatever you're feeling, it's fine as long as you've got the mind right. I mean, that's a good example. It's a little bit far fetched, but that's a good example. You can have somebody who goes on an acid trip, right, and has the worst experience of their life. I totally just burn a hole in my blanket with this cigarette. Okay, that we'll just add to the collection there. About 20 holes. You can have someone who goes on an acid trip and have the worst experience of their life. Like, I never want to do that again. And you can have somebody else who experiments with psychedelics and has the best experience of their life. Oh my God, that was amazing. What's the difference between the two? What's the difference between the two? It's the mind. If you got the mind right and you understand fear for what it is, you're good. You're good. And how to get the mind right? How to get the mind right is simple. Call fear out. Call fear out for what it is. When you see that you're entering into a state of fear, remind yourself that I'm in a state of fear because I'm worried over something that's not happening now, and it'll always be that way. Because if it was happening now, I could deal with it and I could handle the problem. So fear is always based on what's not happening now. Call fear out for what it is instead of falling down that rabbit hole, and you'll get there. I need to grab my soda real quick. We are back. Got some Sprite. Exceptional information. I appreciate that. Um, all we're trying to do is call out fear for what it is. Right now, you believe too much in fear. You could be experiencing the worst of panic attacks. Okay, you could be experiencing the strongest of the strongest symptoms. Doesn't mean you have to be in a state of true terror. Doesn't mean you have to be in a state of true suffering. Doesn't mean you have to be in a state of true fear. Fear is born about what might happen next. Fear is born about what might happen next. If you could access the mind of a person in a full-blown panic, you would see that they're not sitting there experiencing the experience. They're sitting there experiencing fear because they're worried about what might happen next. Imagine experiencing the experience without the mind attached, right? Imagine experiencing the experience without the mind attached. There'd be no fear. It would just be what is. And that's because fear is always based on what might happen next, never based on what's currently happening now. So you have to start calling fear out for what it is. If you're in a state of fear, it's because you're worried about what might happen next, not because of what's happening now. And that's the thing. That's the kicker. That's what we really need to meditate on. That's what we really need to digest deeply and understand deeply. Fear is always based on what might happen next, never based on what's happening now. Even if you're in a full blown state of panic, you're in a state of fear because you're worried about what might happen next. It's always about next, 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 right? Which means, which means you're suffering over imagination. Always. Always. It's never about what's happening now. It's about what's happening might happen next. And that's something we got to take in. That's something we got to take in, not just for face value. That's something we got to take in deep. Deeply understand that. And once you truly think on those words, okay, you start to see a lot of truths. Start to make a lot of realizations. I know it's a little dark in here. I'm still trying to get woke up. I didn't feel like blinding myself today. Honestly, man, we're not gonna make it all day. I'm gonna have to sleep at some point. I don't think I can do it. What's up, Shane? Do I recommend using medications? That's totally up to you. I can't really comment on that. That's totally up to you, your doctor. I didn't use medication, and that's really about as far as I can take that topic. Why are you not a mod in here, Gabe? I've always called you Gabe. I don't know if you knew that. You're a mod in my Discord. It only makes sense if you're a mod in here. There you go. I don't even know if you're still in here, but yeah, exactly. Claire Weeks was aware of it. I mean, she was aware of how the mind plays its dirty tricks. The problem is a lot of people don't digest that fact deep enough. They hear people say, "Oh, well, fear's your imagination," and that's as far as they take it. You need to really think on it, though. Don't just take it for face value. Actually, think about the fact that your fear is always based on what might happen. It's never based on what's happening. And you'll see that you're suffering over imagination. You really have to take that in. You can't take that for face value. Because it's when you have a true, deep understanding of that quote right there that you start to realize how pointless it is to be bluffed by your fear. So you really have to take that in. I know I'm stressing that quite a bit. The only reason I stress that is because for the longest time, even myself personally, I knew that fear was a lie. Whatever. I've heard all the quotes. Fear is a lie. You know, rise above fear. I heard it all. I understood that, but I didn't really understand that until I heard it put in that way. Fear is always based about something that's not happening right now. So if you're suffering from fear, you're always suffering from imagination, right? And I dwelled on that, and I dwelled on that, and I dwelled on that until I realized just how much unnecessary suffering I was causing myself. Oh, thanks. Okay, you got it now. You got the mod. You are a mod in my Discord, right? I think so, anyway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought so. I thought so. Speaking of the Discord, let's advertise that. The Discord's awesome, guys. If you're going to be on Google, if you're going to be on forums, if you're going to be in chat rooms, I recommend you just cut all that shit out and join us on Discord. Let me grab the link to that. I'm going to toss an invite in the chat if you're interested in the Discord channel. There it is. It's completely free. The world is not the same in my vision. What can I do about that? Sounds like depersonalization, derealization, which basically means you're living in a tired mind. That's all that means. So this stream would apply to you too. You have to stop entertaining those negative, fearful thoughts because it's always about what might happen next. It's never about what's happening now. Just be truly present with what you feel and allow yourself to feel it without the negative perspectives of the mind. Okay, without entertaining those, without living through the filter of the mind, and understand. Okay, understand that that symptom is just a symptom of a tired mind from so much obsession. There's nothing wrong with that symptom. That's why it's caused. Understand that. There's the Discord chat link, you guys. Would be more than happy to see you there. Feel free to join us. Welcome therapy, by the way. I don't think I've seen you in here before. Don't think I've seen you in here. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe. We have these live streams quite often, and you know, it's a good place to not feel so alone, to pick up some good tips, tricks, learn how to heal, learn how your body and mind works. So feel free to subscribe so you don't miss out. Do yourself a favor. It helped insanely with physical symptoms, but I think I forgot about mental stuff, but I'm trying not to follow those thoughts. Yeah, and that's a point we brought up earlier, and it's so, so important. A lot of people do use acceptance for the physical symptoms in a way. They're like, okay, they start to make changes to how they approach these symptoms, which is great. That's a great start. But there's two main keys for a reason. You have to use both of them. The mental stuff is just as important, if not more important, than trying to relax the body and getting on with your daily life and all that good stuff. That's an awesome start, but the mental stuff is just as important. I stress that quite often. You can't have one of the two main keys without the other. They're there for a reason. So yeah, just keep practicing, dude. Just keep practicing. You'll get there. Why some people get the anxiety again from me? So I'm gonna assume you mean why people experience anxiety again or become sensitized again after recovery, and it's because they barely just got by the skin of their teeth, right? But they weren't truly practicing the skills that you need to practice. They weren't truly going all the way, so they healed by luck and chance, and then they picked up the same, or maybe they did use the two main keys. But then there comes a time where they pick up the bad habits that landed them in the sensitized, anxious place to begin with. They pick right back up on those bad habits of adding fear and stuff, and then it just puts them back in the same boat. So once you heal, once you recover, you can't go back to all the bad habits that put you there to begin with, right? You can't do that and then wonder why that happened. It happened because you picked up the same bad habits that got you in trouble to begin with. And we do see that happen. We see that happen with people. And that's understandable. It happened to me. It happened to me. I was sensitized 3 times. I had 3 what I would call severe bouts of sensitization. Uh, all 3 of those times I knew about acceptance and I practiced it a little bit, but I really wasn't going all the way. I wasn't truly dedicating to it. So, it wouldn't take long after I'd overcome a bout of sensitization to fall right back into the same negative habits and then pick it all right back up again. It happens. It happens. But it's all because you're not truly dedicating to changing the way you operate. I think because stop panicking properly and go back to my old ways. Exactly, Jen. And that's the exact point that I was just making. Happened to me several times before I started the YouTube channel. I was sensitized 3 times, what I would call severe bouts of sensitization. And it's because I would heal by the skin of my teeth, by luck, by chance, just barely practicing what I needed to do with acceptance. Fast forward a little bit, I'd pick right back up on the old habits of worry. I'd pick right back up on the old habits of second fear. I'd pick right back up on this mental game, right? And it would eventually put me back into the sensitized boat. Just realize that I just need to carry on with my life. Yeah. See, that's a great start, but you gotta work with the mental side of things too. You gotta make some adjustments there as well. That's why we have the two main keys. And that's easy to do. It's easy to practice just getting on with your life, but then still entertaining all the negative BS all day long. Yeah, exactly, Jen. I know exactly how that feels. Like I said, I would heal just by the skin of my teeth, and then fast forward not long after, I'd pick right back up on entertaining all the stress and worry and going right back into my bad old habits. Sooner or later, it would catch up to me. And that's what I eventually realized. If I'm going to do this, I need to understand the mind and body. I need to understand acceptance, and I need to dedicate to it. So I did that. I picked up the two main keys. I started calling it the two main keys. Here's what I need to do. Accept the symptoms for what they are, and work on that mental side of things, so important. And by work, I mean stop following thoughts down the rabbit hole, right? And eventually I was able to do that the right way. And that little mantra that I keep giving you guys in this stream helped me a ton. Fear is always based on something that's not happening now. That's very grounding to remind yourself of that. If you're in a fearful state, it's because you're suffering over something that is not happening now. It's kind of like a little slap in your own face, like, wake up, dude. Wake up, dude. Nose is so itchy today. I don't know if it's allergies. I don't know what it is. So I want to get it right this time. You will. You will. Don't beat yourself up for how long it's taken. I mean, that's a very normal part of the process. You have to fall several times to realize that you need to truly dedicate. Sometimes it takes falling down several times to get to that point of realizing that. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Happened to me, probably happens to most people. Do you hate when you get something to drink and it goes down the wrong way? It's the worst. Kind of looking over my channel. I'm multitasking a little bit here, chat. So if you feel an improvement in your anxiety symptoms, is that a sign that you're getting closer to recovery? I would say yes. That's a pretty obvious sign. But don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. You never want to overcomplicate this. You never want to overthink this because the whole root problem here is that you're too much in your mind. You're taking your mind too seriously, and that's really the root problem. So, the answer to your question, yes, but at the same time, don't overthink it. Just allow yourself to feel what you feel. You don't have to attach so much meaning to it. The toughest symptom? Well, back when I seen my symptoms in a very negative light, right? Back when I was sensitized, I'd say my toughest symptom was probably the adrenaline because I always thought that it was going to make me go crazy or insane. And because I held that perspective and I fed into that fear, that BS, that turned a very normal symptom, a very basic anxiety symptom, into something horrible. And it was, of course, all a mind game, but there's really no such thing as tough anxiety symptoms. It's all a mind game, right? It really, really is. And if you truly start to investigate what I just said, you'll come to that realization. Makes my whole body tremble. Yeah, you got like the turning in the stomach, the sinking stomach, and then there comes the adrenaline. You feel like you got to do something, but you realize there's nothing to do, right? And it gives you this sense of oh God, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to explode. Uh, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's no such thing as a bad feeling. It's just this mind game that we continue to play. It's this fear that we continue to believe. And,
Donation.
fear is always about something that isn't happening now. Insane Furball, thank you for the $30 dodo out of nowhere, dude. Where have you been? This man's not even in the chat. He's dropping donos. Thank you so much, Furball. We hit our tip goal. I appreciate it, guys. Truly, thank you so much. That helps me. That helps me a ton. Very, very thankful. Furball, thank you so much, dude. Can we show Furball some love in the chat, please? It's kind, generous people like this that make it possible for me to stream and do YouTube and content creation for a living. So, huge shout out to these guys. Thank you so much. Truly, truly appreciate it. Furball Jen, thank you for your generous donations this morning. Truly appreciate you. Much love to you guys. How do you deal with it when you're in that bad mindset? Can't talk. Bad. That bad mindset. How do you deal with it when you're in that bad mindset? Um, well, you've already got half the answer right there. You realize that it's because of your bad mindset, and now you just need to stop following that fear where it wants to take you. And a good way to do that is by using that mantra that fear is always based on something that's not happening right now. And that kind of grounds you and makes you realize I'm suffering over something not happening. Right? I'm suffering over a perspective. I'm suffering over a ghost. And living by that mantra, it kind of shines the light on the BS of fear, the utter BS of fear. Claire Weeks used to say utter acceptance. I like to say that fear and the mind is utter BS. It's all the same. Accept it, work with it, realize that it's BS, realize that it's a ghost. If you're suffering over fear, it's because you're suffering over something that does not exist, and that makes no sense why you would continue doing that to yourself. Drop all that. Drop all that nonsense. You're suffering over a perspective. You're suffering over imagination. It's so important. It's so important to realize that on a deep level. I'm at work, so I'm in and out. Ah, gotcha. Well, hey, man, I appreciate that, Dono. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Furball. It helps me a ton. You already know that. Thank you, dude. Keep going. My friend told me about you and recovered from anxiety, and it's a great channel, to be honest. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, thanks to my lovely community here, I'm able to, I'm able to focus on this full time. So, don't thank me, thank them. If it wasn't for people like that, like Furball and Jen and all my supporters, I'd have to find another means to survive, and this would not be my main focus anymore, and I wouldn't be able to release as much content. So, don't thank me, thank all the people like that. Thank all the people like that. That's the reason I'm able to be here as often as I am. You truly give so many people hope and direction, Wonder Bro. I truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm talking to one of my friends, cracking myself up over here, texting. fear is funny, man. It's funny how in reality you can be experiencing anxiety, panic, and symptoms. That's still not the problem. The problem is the fear. The problem is the fear, and the fear is always based on imagination. So really, you're suffering like this over imagination. You can be experiencing the symptoms all you want, but they're still not the problem. The reason you suffer is the fear, and the fear is based on imagination about what might happen next, but isn't happening now. So you realize that you're suffering so deeply over a ghost. And once you make that realization, it's like, pardon my French, but fuck this shit. It's time to stop. It's time to stop. I'm calling fear out for what it is. 2 seconds, you lovely people. All right. Just reading over the comments. I did not mean to be that gone for that long. I apologize. I am getting hungry though, so I'm probably gonna split soon and make some food. We've been streaming for almost 2 hours. Oh, ghost man. All right, you guys. If you missed this stream or if you just want to rewatch this stream, I'm very, very happy with it. So it's definitely going to be uploaded. So if you missed it, feel free to catch it when it gets uploaded. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your love, for your support. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you. 10K right around the corner. I know we're going to hit it. No problem. So thank you guys for that. And until next time, as always, that was kind of weak. All right, that'll just have to do. All right, you guys, stay awesome.